Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with two of my most favorite people in the whole world. I am so excited. If you don't know, these two people are Brooke Grove and Peter Panagore. I got to meet through IANDS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And I think I've been together with you in person, I don't know, 3-4 times. Well, Peter 4 times probably, and Brooke at least 3 times, I think. Yeah, and they're just such bright lights and such delightful bearers of a way to integrate these spiritual and metaphysical and mystical times that we're going through, and a way to be fully embodied during these times so that you can participate in the change. And we're evolving to a new human, I hope. That's what they say. That's what all the ancients say. And these two beautiful beings are able to articulate the journeys that they both had through NDEs and make it real for all of us so that we can go on the journey and integrate more of our higher being within our vessel. So welcome, you guys. Did that help? I consider these two people a soul family. So part of the discussion today will be talking about soul family. But first, if people don't know you, could we start with Brooke? Would you be so kind as to explain a little bit about your journey so people could get to know you a little bit?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Brooke Grove. I began my journey here studying clinical psychology, which was interrupted by a transformative and ineffable near-death experience in 2010. That radical light and life altering, change shifted my entire trajectory in this incarnation. And I ended up leaving clinical psychology, going through a decade's dark night of the soul as I learned to integrate and ground after effects, which are the side effects of a near-death experience. And that led me here as I learned there was a gap in care that I wanted to address to help other mystical experiencers ground, integrate, and show radical grace and compassion towards said after effects. I now specialize in teaching others integration, embodiment, and radical self-compassion.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And Peter.
I'm Peter Panagore. I'm a 2-time near-death experiencer. After my first one many decades ago, I, like Brooke, needed to learn to integrate. I was propelled back into a world that radiated light from every nook and cranny, but also was covered over with a veil of darkness. And I was bereft of the ineffable, the light beyond comprehension, the uncreated light. And so the trauma of that night, the process of dying, left me marked. And over decades, I've been working on facing my shadow sides, I should say, and practicing centering prayer and Kriya Yoga in order to begin to reintegrate myself. And at this very moment, I am having an after effect with all of you because my screen energy flashes sometimes and my screen keeps turning off. And that's, if you saw me go dark a little bit, that's what was going on. And so those after effects, some of them are like a little magical, but mostly they're just a pain in the butt like this at this very moment. And the other after effects include aspects of not being present. So early on, I was so far above and outside myself, I found it very difficult to integrate and be here.
Perfect, perfect. And that's hopefully what we're going to get to talk about right now is how to be here during these huge changes by either finding your soul family and other people to help you integrate the experiences that you're having. I believe that there's so many sensitives are waking up to their higher knowing, their opportunity to experience and embody more of the light that they are and the love that they are. And do you want to share a little bit about the opportunity to work together to uncover this beautiful aspect that we all are, and release shame, blame, trauma, well, all of those.
Well, if I may, Peter was instrumental for me as what I call a spirit baby in the near-death community. When I first came out after 9 years of not sharing my story and said dark night of the soul and started coming back into the community, I had this limiting belief or this false narrative that if you had your NDE, as Peter had one of his in 1981, which is also the year I was born, you would have done all of the integration and you're going to be like so much further down the trajectory than I was. And what was really humbling and such a beautiful gift that Peter gave me as we began to speak and be in more resonance and community more often, he was very forthright that he was struggling with many of the same issues that I was experiencing at said time, only a decade out. I'm now at almost 15 years. I'm at 14 years right now, 15 in December. And to know that someone that had been living the path, devoted to the path, and yet was still struggling with the stigma, the isolation, the shame, so many of the things that compound a near-death experience, the shadow, as Peter eloquently referred to. That was medicinal for me. And so much of what we are here to share in union and a part of our synergy and flow is that this is a normal process. This is non-linear growth within a mystical experience. And as our world awakens, it's fundamental that all experiencers understand you're going to ebb and flow through this non-linear path, and you have to love every layer of it.
And it's an ongoing process.
Right. Well, the thing that is amazing is when you study, I've read hundreds of books, near-death experiences, including Peter's, and I really find that it's amazing how pertinent the information is that explains the bigger field that we're in. I did not have a near-death experience that I know of, but I've had spiritually transformative experiences, and I've always had a little bit bigger perspective in a different way. And I certainly never told anyone about it. So by listening to Peter first, because I met Peter before I met you, Brooke, I got language for a lot of this, and because it is such a embedded emotional heart space response that I couldn't find words for it. So I am very grateful to Peter for the words that he, the mystical, sensual almost language that he uses that helps me embed it. Because part of it, you go from here to here, here to here, here to here, and this never figures it out. It doesn't. And that's the period we're in right now with the upgrades from the sun. Physiologically, as a human species, we're upgrading. Hopefully more of our DNA will be activated during this time. And the opportunity to be in brotherhood, sisterhood, in this field of love that isn't judgmental. The shadow work, so much of that is judgmental, that we may have projected on others until we realized it was ourselves. Will you two both maybe speak to shadow work a little bit, so that if the audience doesn't quite know what that is, I'll feature you first, Brooke, if you would, about shadow work, and then we can go on to a different subject. Is that okay, Brooke?
Mhm. Well, from a psychological perspective, shadow work is a Jungian term from depth psychology, wherein we are looking at the parts that the ego or the subconscious and lower unconscious mind have repressed. Often that repression is projected out onto others. It can also be the motivation or the undercurrent for things like addictions or things that are coming from any type of unloved, bad, unworthy, wounded portion of the psyche. So it's really an archetype. But what's important to understand about the shadow is that it's not black and white. So many people think of the shadow as an umbrella term, but the shadow itself is a multi-dimensional archetype, meaning you're going to have multitudes within the shadow. So we need to know our shadow in not just a superficial way. There are parts within the wounded child. I like to call my wounded children, for example, inner children versus the inner child, because again, it contains multitudes. So the shadow is the part that makes us uncomfortable. It's the part we're going to forget. But as Jung said, it's also the part that contains the gold. You face the monster and you become the hero. It is the epicenter of what Joseph Campbell calls the hero's journey. It is the part that will take you to victory if you're willing to look into the abyss. And being and sitting with the abyss is quite often the hardest part.
Right. Perfect. Thank you. And I do think that this is such a powerful subject for people as they're waking up, because the whatever we hide and we try not to experience amplifies. Resistance is futile. So, Peter, could you speak to that as well?
Sure. When I first came back, I entered into the darkness of the world, having left the light of the unconditional love and the uncreated light behind. And yes, it was present here, but only in a minuscule way. And so I, like Brooke, kept my mouth shut for, in my case, 2 decades about my near-death experience. And in my day, I had no help. There was no one I could turn to. So I went and I looked into the ancient mystics, contemplatives in the literature around the world, East and West, and I found practices that I began to employ interiorly, meditation primarily, but variations of meditation. And I went into therapy because it didn't heal me of everything. You know, sometimes people come back from these experiences and there's been miraculous healing, but that wasn't my case. I came back, I still had all the wounds that I had before. And I had to go through psychological, emotional shadow work to face those parts of myself. I'm still doing it. I'm still discovering parts of myself. This is 40 years into it. And I expect it's going to continue till the day I die. And at the same time, I was working on my shadow self. I was working on my light self. And so the practices of interior meditation, and for me, Kriya Yoga and other kinds of yoga and other kinds of contemplation, they were complementary to the shadow work itself. They helped me face into the darkness and have no fear about it. But they also helped me to stand my ground when the parts of me that were traumatized were causing behaviors that I didn't want to have. And they helped me stand and recognize that I am not those things. I'm not just theoretically not those things. Those aren't me. I am a soul divine above, and I'm inhabiting this body. And so I have to face this part of myself that is all too human.
Perfect. Thank you. So in a lot of near-death experiences, people have their life review, and they have an opportunity to see that they're the only one judging themselves. What and then they come back and their life doesn't fit. Like Peter said, there was a little bit of that loving experience here in this reality versus the near-death experience reality, or any spiritually transformative reality. You're bathed in this like the mother's love, and you yearn for it. It's a primal yearning. So many experiencers feel a sense of estrangement, or their old lives never fit, no longer fit. A lot of people get divorces. They change their whole trajectory, like Brooke changed what she was doing. And my friend Kimbo is going to be an aerospace engineer or something like that. And instead she does sound healing. What advice would you give to someone currently navigating that difficult reintegration?
I would say, if I may go first, I would say go within. I found that the more I tried to integrate into the world exteriorly, the more I failed at it, because my primary sense of self is my beingness, my interior beingness. And I discovered that by going interiorly, that the more I grounded myself in my higher self, the more able I was to live in the world, which I know is kind of counterintuitive, but it's the way it worked for me. And the deeper I went inside myself, the more I discovered that the only one standing between me and source is my sense of my identity. And so as I was working with as I continue to work with my traumas, the more I am able to identify with my higher self, the smaller the foundation is for my false identity to stand on. And so the more I work toward the connection that came back with me, so it came back with me. I've been massaging it ever since. The stronger that becomes, the easier it is for me to release those parts of myself that are all too human. And it's a long process. I expect mine to end the day that I finally die and stay dead. And until then, I'm going to continue to work at it.
I would say, similar to what I would say to almost anyone that's struggling with our awakening world right now, is to grieve. I had a reaction formation, which is where you want to do like the opposite of what's expected for you, response, insofar as I wanted to jump back into the human suit and be Brooke prior to coma. And I wanted to people please and just make everything go back to the status quo so that life could continue. And in doing so, I was unable to allow the death of the person I had been before and welcome the birth of who I returned as. And having worked with experiencers now across the world, I have seen the same pattern repeat itself over and over. There's a tendency to kind of go all or nothing, either into the new or into the old. And the truth is, it's a path of discovery. You're in this space that feels disqualified, that feels uncomfortable because you are in the womb, you're in a container, you are birthing something new. And as you're allowing the new, it is necessary energetically and from a psychological and emotional perspective to grieve what was, so that you can make space in your psyche, in your emotional body, in your spiritual body for this new person to come through. But if there is kind of like a hindrance of old energy and new, or you're parroting to be who people want you to be before, you're going to find, strain. I know the statistics that Kathy brought up about divorce, about changes in lifestyles. I'm textbook all that way. I woke up from coma, newly married, unable to recognize the person I had chose to be with. And I wasn't that same person. So I pivoted and attempted to be that person for a while. And all it did was cause more and more pain. With time, through shamanic energy medicine and grounding technologies, I learned that I could grieve and release the spirit and the ways of being of who I was before, and simultaneously birth and make space for the person I was becoming. But to do it, I had to validate all of the really uncomfortable, shadowy feelings. And I would encourage anyone that's struggling now not to push it away, not to run from it. That will only feed it. Look it right in the eye and show it compassion. Ask it what it needs. Feel it. And as you feel it, energy naturally wants to dissipate and move on. It only becomes a hindrance or psychopathology when we refuse to be present with it.
And I want to say that I'm so grateful for the two of you and the way that you are courageously sharing this, because these conversations where people are afraid to make those first steps to find out who they really are, these conversations allow people to know that there's something better on the other side, that trauma or the clear journey from the old you to the new you is a blessed thing rather than a frightening, terrifying thing. The other thing that's beautiful about these conversations is that we don't really die. We have another experience. Could you guys both talk about that awareness that you got, where you don't really die and you're not fearful of living?
Oh no.
Yeah. Well, Peter, do you want to start with that? You chimed in really fast.
Yeah, I was going to pick up a little bit on what Brooke was saying about what I call masking, because when we come back from these experiences, it's not just our own psychology and emotions; it's relationships with all these other people who have expectations of who we are, or who we're supposed to be, or who we were, and we now know that we're not that person. We've become somebody else, and I lost what you were going to ask me, Kathy. Could you remind me?
Well, I think what I was trying to have you talk about is you've had two near-death experiences, and
The fear, no fear of death.
The other side, and this is what I want the audience to glean from this, is that most of the near-death experiencers, especially the two of you who I think are some of the most outstanding spokespeople for this, come out of their experience wanting to serve others, and to let them know that they don't have to be afraid of death. And they're in our culture, in our programs, we are terrified of death, although public speaking is more frightening. but you guys got over that. So all I was trying to, Brooke, you did. You're fantastic. So anyway, so I was trying to have you share about the emergence of this realization of the journey we're on, and not be afraid of death. Okay.
So the moment I came back, I wasn't afraid of death anymore. It was gone. What the trouble was living, not that it was hard. It was just not as good as death. But from the moment that I came back, all my fear of death was gone, and therefore it freed me in living. Because if you can't kill me, then what should I be afraid of? I told, once I finally came out of the closet on this, I told people near to me that I wasn't afraid of dying. And I don't think that they believed me till the second time I died. And it was a great day for me. I chose to come back the second time too, but I was the calmest person in the whole space when it first started happening, because death is going home for me. And so what that allows me to do in my life has allowed me to learn to live in my life is to release the parts of me that are inauthentic and to just slowly become the person who I actually am. And hopefully the people in relationship with me will come along, and some have and some haven't, but that's okay.
You can love them no matter what.
Yeah.
It's their journey. So, Brooke, would you share your insights?
Similarly to Peter, it's wild. You come out of these experiences, and I often compare it culturally to when you see like a young adult or vampire movie, and they wake up, and suddenly the whole world appears through these new eyes, and all of their senses have been amplified. That's very parallel in some ways to an NDE, whether you have significant after effects or not. The most prominent being, there is indeed that no fear of death. For me, when I awoke, I was intubated. I was strapped down to a bed because I had a PICC line going into my brain and could not move for safety. And so suddenly I'm like literally unable to move. And yet at the same token, there's an awareness that I have come back from this beatific space that is beyond words, where I have literally tasted divine beauty and been in this ecstatic joy and unconditionality. And now I'm in this broken body and it hurts, but what am I going to do with it? What's the opportunity? Because ultimately it was understood I would go back to that beautiful place. And so every opportunity that the body and circumstance and family and trauma and whatnot has presented since has had a lower threshold insofar as it can't kill me. There is a knowing that my soul is eternal and will live on, as are all souls. And that is a beautiful dance to understand. However, as I also work with the shadow side of after effects and mystical experiences, I would like to say that the awareness that death is nothing more than a transition is actually sometimes of a red flag for some experiencers. Sometimes when you know death and life continue onward and onward and onward, when people are struggling with many of the after effects and shadow elements that Peter and I have acknowledged, they will then almost have an escapist view of death. And that's where some of the danger comes in integrating these type of experiences. I bring that up because for myself and for many others, something that often gets bypassed in these discussions is the amount of experiencers we lose to suicide. And with our awakening world and persons being more and more amplified in these type of multidimensional and metaphysical gifts and experiences, I just want to acknowledge that. So if you've had a taste of death and you're not fearful of death, it's also an invitation to romance life so that you don't get enchanted in going back. There's a lot of us that get stuck in that place as new spirit babies within the NDE community because we just want to go back to that divine juiciness, that yumminess, and the opportunity of tasting death but being given back the gift of life is to take the knowing that all things are eternal, all things live on, and infuse it into everything you touch while you have the gift of breath and this holy human animal at your service.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Brooke. So James Bonato is on, and he asked a question. He says, I've learned a lot from Peter and Brooke and the rest of the NDE gang I met. Hi, James. Anyway, and I feel I have grown and have learned a few lessons, like forgiving folks I never thought I could forgive. But I am still having difficulty with mercy versus justice. I've always chosen justice my whole life, but I'm trying to change and let mercy guide me. It's not working. Any insight on this?
Interesting question. So
Thank you, James.
I think it begins with the recognition, at least for me, begins with the recognition of my own failings. During my near-death experience, I went through a hell of my own making, where I wasn't judged, but I judged myself. And when I came back in that experience, I saw this radical equality of all humanity and our brokenness and in our holiness. But when I came back, it was easier to see myself and others, my brokenness in other people. And so there was this combination of seeing the light inside of them that is the eternal light, which is one of the after effects for me. It's everybody has it, even people who dislike me and have worked against me. They still have it. I could still see it. But to when recognizing that light inside of them, they're that eternal nature, and then recognizing that they're just as broken as I am and my humanity, it becomes easier to have mercy for them, because the mercy for them is the same mercy that I'm showing to myself. It's a combination of the two. As I am merciful to myself, I'm merciful to others, and I'm merciful to myself because I recognize my own failings as a human being, and I recognize my own light as a divine being. My friend, Brooke, what do you think?
As I always tell my two young children, when I'm deep into judgment, I'm often seeing through these two eyes. The eyes that I was birthed into, the eyes that the world indoctrinated into me, where there's right and wrong, there's black and white, there's good and bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is a world of duality. It is a world of programming. However, when I see through the eyes of God, I see through the third eye, connected all the way above, then I see unity. And so I know when judgment reveals itself to me through these two human fallible eyes, it is an opportunity to merge the opposition and see through the eyes of the one. And through the eyes of the one, mercy comes intuitively.
Yeah.
But it comes through that practice of understanding that I'm human and it's okay. And I judge myself quite often. When I catch myself judging through these two eyes, I will then judge the judgment. And that's an opportunity there to meet myself with mercy. And if I can show that unconditional mercy to myself, again, it dissolves into mercy for the other. And then that mercy becomes God's language, which is compassion. Because the God that I encountered and the God that I know Peter encountered and that we know intimately through our lived experience and our near-death experiences, that God does not judge. That guy sees through the eyes of the one.
Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And I do think that that is the journey that, as I said, I believe that millions of people are waking up right now, and that they're all becoming somewhat empathic. And then they all of a sudden have to figure out, is it me or is it them? And then it's all you. It's all your judgments. It's all your boundaries that you've created to try to keep yourself safe. But I believe the divine brings you all those experiences so that you can learn. And if you have that kind of perspective, it's actually, why was I supposed to meet or experience this or that, right? It's a wake-up call in a lot of cases. So I want to ask again about soul family, because I do believe that you two are part of my soul family. I mean, when I met you, it was just lights went off. It was like you got the same memo I got that this was a game and we were to play it with love, and not conditional love, unconditional love. And the journey was to love ourselves first, and then so we could love others. Could you talk, both of you, because I know at the IANDS event coming up, you're doing a presentation about soul family, and you both have such different perspectives and backgrounds on your vision of that or language on that. So could I don't know who wants to start here. Okay, Brooke. Okay.
Well, this is kind of an organic development. Soul family for me, it's been the nourishment of my near-death experience. Many of us that have these awakening experiences, recurrently or independently, we often are outliers in our family of origin. I know for myself, I am a naturally born intuitive. I'm an artist. I've always colored outside the lines and seen things differently. My NDE drastically amplified that, and I returned to that person as I hadn't been being her as a scientist for quite a long time. However, it's a very isolating and lonely thing. However, there are persons out there that carry a very similar or complementary energetic signature to each and every one of us. And those persons, whether they are seen or unseen, whether we know them or we are yet to know them, they tap into our frequency. And as Peter can tell you, when we first met, I wasn't even speaking. I was in a very scientific role. I was observing everyone. He thought I didn't talk. It was kind of a comical thing. But the reality was I was feeling into the community. I was seeking resonance. A like seeks like. I was looking for those that I knew would amplify my vibration and would nourish it and provide containment. And I found that in so many persons within the NDE community, Peter included. So Peter, would you like to expand upon that?
Yes, my family of origin, I love them all, but they can't understand me. I found it very difficult for all the years when I was alone with no one to speak to about this, no one who could understand. It was isolating. And it wasn't until I found IANDS, International Association for Near-Death Studies, and began to meet other near-death experiencers that I discovered that I wasn't alone in the world. And not only was I not alone in the world, the radiant energy when I'm in the presence of other people like me, it magnifies around me, and it becomes a noetic understanding of this inorganic connection, because it's not organic, it's not tactile or material, it's energetic, it's soul to soul. And as a result of finding my soul family, I find it easier to deal with my loving real family, because I don't need to mask parts of myself during parts of my life. I still have to, when I'm in the presence of people who are wonderful people and full of love, but don't have a shared experience, my conversation with them becomes, I don't want to say more superficial, but less divine. And I find that with my soul family, there are no subjects I can't talk about at all. And there are subjects that none of us really care to talk about very much because there's kind of superficial.
It's almost like you're finishing each other's sentences, and it's like the beginning of Samadhi, where you're in that phase where you've had a lot of breath and you're full, your heart is full, and it's heart to heart. It's not this to this at all. It's heart to heart, and it's almost there's almost sound to it. To me, it's a vibrational experience, and I'm hoping that everyone gets a chance to experience that. Do you find that you're seeing, I'm seeing from living in Boulder, Colorado, that a lot of people are taking plant medicine to try to have these kind of experiences? What are your thoughts on plant medicine as a way to have these connections to source or personal development, if you want to call it that, but there are experiences that need to be integrated? Brooke, do you want to start? Or
Sure. First and foremost, I am a big supporter for plant medicine when utilized with integrity in a container with reverence to the spirit of the plant. That said, I personally do not believe in chasing the sacred, because our chakras, our bodies, our minds, our inner technologies are already programmed to taste the divine. So when we talk about plant medicine to induce an NDE-like experience, for me, as a healer and former clinician, I have to be curious about what is the goal? What are we after here? What is the desired outcome? Because that's going to orient how the medicine behaves and how the person receives it. Remember, perception is power, and what you go into with any journey is going to direct its outcome. So for me, when I hear that plant medicine is the same as an NDE or it's like a mystical experience, I will say it's like, but having experienced both in multitudes, I'm going to say that plant medicine does not touch it. Again, you are in the body. You are still connected to the human and to the primal. For most of us that are leaving in an NDE, we're exiting the physical. We are close to the door of death. We're in chakras outside the body or other dimensions, heaven, whatever you wish to call it. We are there. Plant medicine itself can induce a psychological or emotive or spiritual experience like that, but it is not the body itself dying. So to me, they are separate occasions. They both deserve reverence and respect. However, with plant medicine, you need to be very, very mindful of what your intentionality is. As a healer and someone that works in the quantum field and with shamanic energy medicine, I have seen a surge in recent years of people abusing plant medicine to experience something transcendent and coming back with more harm. For example, people that are on SSRIs and should not be taking them because it can cause serotonin problems that can be quite dangerous, and persons who may be floridly psychotic or somewhere on the border of psychosis, and they're taking these medicines hoping to touch God, but coming back with more demons and attachments and energy and parasites and hijackers, as we call them. And that's dangerous. So I just want to really encourage people, while all roads are open when utilized with unconditionality and love and intuitive guidance, we have to respect these medicines. We have to understand that they must be used ceremonially and they must be supported by the right integration and the right management so that you can take that medicine and actually embody it in service to both your healing and the world.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Peter.
Wow, my camera switched again.
Put your hand out by your
Let's
camera.
try that.
I'm glad it's you today and not me.
Oh, it's totally me. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can do this or do that. And
There
there we go. All right. Okay. So I agree with what Brooke said. I'm also an experiencer of plant medicine and LSD. And I took LSD. The first time I took it was a triple dose when I was 18 years old, years before my near-death experience, and unexpectedly, knowing nothing about LSD, and I didn't do it in a safe environment, I had a God end of duality experience. And after my NDE, it had changed my life. Okay, so that experience, it totally changed my life. I learned meditation after that. I dove into meditation. I know that I wanted this I amness. But after my NDE and being separate from my body, I recognized it was a type of mystical experience. But it was different because, as Brooke said, there's no body when you're dead. And so that made it quantitatively different. And it wasn't until a friend of mine was in the John Hopkins spirituality study, transcendence study that just ended with plant medicine. And there was an article, it might have been in the Atlantic or the New Yorker a couple of months ago about it, that I came to understand that, yes, a plant medicine and high dose LSD transformational experience, that's real. But a couple of warnings. Brooke brought out, if you have a mental illness in your family or yourself, it can be dangerous. I've seen this happen with a person I know, came back after an ayahuasca experience with many more demons than this person had before, and it's ongoing. And so there is that to consider. But as in all mystical experiences, near-death experience is a type of mystical experience. There are other types of mystical experiences, and plant medicine is one of them. But as with all experiences, we need to figure out how to integrate them, because we call them transformative because we become different people. And how do you, when you become a different person and you're still in the same body and you're still in the same community or family, and now you're different, well, how does one integrate this new person into not only my life, but into the lives of the people around me?
Mm-hmm.
I have had, when I was an undergraduate, before my first near death, I took LSD quite a number of times, and took plant medicine since then. And it can help. It can give you the end of duality experience. But if you continue to try, I never tried to get back the first time I had that experience. I wasn't in pursuit of it. It pursued me. And rather than me trying to manufacture these experiences, I found that the process of integration, the meditation, the study, the community of people, that was a much better path for me to continue to try to integrate what had already happened to me, rather than run after. Because when you run after these things, it's like in Zen. In Zen, they talk about the last thing you need to give up before you achieve Satori is your desire for Satori. If you want this thing, you can't get this thing, because this thing has nothing to do with your egoic self. And as long as the egoic self is grasping after Satori or Samadhi or heaven, it becomes ungraspable. It is ungraspable by the mind. And the mind's egoic journey of pursuit of it is important, because you want to be able to want this thing in order to, especially if you've tasted it, it leaves this residual in us that makes me want it. Same with Brooke, is what I heard her say more than once. But as long as an egoic mind is after the inexpressible, you won't ever get it. You can't. You have to not be attached to the journey in order for it to manifest itself.
Perfect. Thank you. Perfect. I find I had a spiritually transformative experience over 20 years ago, and there was no integration afterwards. The next day I was on an airplane at an airport, not even sure what was physical and what was energy. And there was no drugs or anything. It was just a 2-week experience of clearing. And then I popped. And I still, 21 years later, I still think of it every day. Do you guys still think about, well, Peter, you've had 2 near-death experiences, but do you both of you still think about the near-death experience every day, or is it just one of the collages of experiences that you have had?
They all kind of pile up on each other. Mystical experiences, they kind of get into a big pile, but I can't not think about my NDE, because my physical perception of the world includes this radiance of the presence wherever I go, whatever I'm doing. Is it always in the forefront? No. If I'm hyper focused on some task at hand, like I'm trying to hit a nail head with a hammer and not my thumb, if I'm zoomed in on that nail head, I'm not thinking about it, but it never goes away.
Yes, it's always present with me. It's become, almost like the root chakra, in that it holds up so much of my beingness in this world, and it's something that grounds me and I'm in service to on this earth complain, but it ebbs and flows. You know, as someone who woke up in a coma, there's nights where I can't go to sleep and it's like, oh, closing my eyes. And then I have to remind myself, I'm not scared of death. It was the act of dying that was the scary part that kind of haunts me. And if you listen to any experiencer, will say that, like, death's not scary, but dying sucks. You know,
Yes.
so there's been some encounters because I had systemic organ failure. So I've dealt with the after effects of those conditions as I've been integrating. And yeah, there's times where it's like, this NDE, or, oh, this, you know, after effect, or, oh, this physical symptom. And I remember over and over again that the holiest prayer to me is gratitude. And so just saying, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to have lungs that have survived failing and still choose to breathe. Thank you for fire falling from the sky and my lungs are still working. Thank you for a jaw that locks but speaks its truth. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as I embody gratitude as a prayer, however my NDE and my after effects present in this world, it becomes a growth opportunity. And that is really what anchors me to this work and to honoring whatever multitude of memory or sensation comes through per my NDE on any given day.
Wow, that was fantastic. Thank you, Brooke. And I really want people to understand this is where, again, I keep talking about the head versus the heart. When Brooke was talking about that, I could sense it. Yeah, the words had a frequency that actually unlocked part of my heart. And same thing with you, Peter. That's part of the reason I just love talking to you guys. I just gained so much more insight into the way to communicate and assist others on their journey going to this new expansive humanness that we're hopefully going to see. So the next question I wanted to ask was about children. Are you seeing, because Brooke has children and Peter has grandchildren, I think, yeah, and I do too. Could you talk about what you're seeing with the new children? Because I'm finding that I can use telepathy with them so easily, and they read the energy different than what we were possibly programmed or our training was. Do you see that at all?
I'm always using that energy all the time with everybody. So it's kind of it's kind of a common thing in my life. With my grandchildren, I can't help but love them. So, you know, and they can't help but love me. So there's this extra dose going on all the time anyway. I don't know whether they're more or less, but what I have seen is that there are people who are more able to sense in their heart, through their ears, with their eyes, with their tongue, with their fingertips, the divine presence. And I think the children in general are more capable of that than most adults are. That's the best I get.
Yes, everything's an intersection. And as we live in a quantum world with infinite possibilities, there are multitudes that are co-occurring. And I can say I have the privilege of getting to witness an intuitive child grow up unencumbered. As an intuitive child myself, my gifts were shamed, they were stigmatized. I was told they were witchcraft, it wasn't allowed in the church, et cetera, et cetera. And I always prayed for a family member that would understand me, and they never came. And then 3 years after coma, I gave birth to my eldest, and suddenly there was an intuitive in the home. Be careful what you wish for. Now I've got someone that can read me and has many of the same gifts and whatnot. But at the same token, I have a son that's 4 years younger, and he's not on that path. He didn't come in with those type of, Christed and galactic activations that give him an enhanced way of being in this world. I'm blessed also to have my children in an alternative learning environment. So I see many, many children that are traditionally labeled neurodivergent, and they're being fed meds and they're being put through the system and all sorts of things in some cases, or like my son, where we're not doing that. And I get to kind of see the fusion between those two. And I will tell you, we evolve to meet our environment. And yes, there are children that are coming in that are like activated way showers because the environment is changing. So we will continue to see an activation of that. But so much of it is what's in resonance to these children as they come in. What's the environment like? Is it nourishing these intuitive gifts, or is it constricting and, really demeaning them in a way, which was the old way? And what I'm happy to say is that whatever diversity might exist in parenting right now, and there is a huge spectrum, that said, there is much more awareness into the emotional and spiritual intelligence of children. And that deeply impacts our awakening world and these light code activations that we're going in through right now, which the children especially are sensitive to because their auric field is not yet fully developed.
Thank you. Yes, I'm finding that, again, the children are our future.
Well, while Kathy's waiting to spin back in again, thank you, Brooke. That was well said.
Yes, it was beautiful. You can't see me? Oh, am I in?
Oh, yeah, you're it.
Okay. That was perfect. And that was what I was hoping we would talk about is I want to leave all of this on a high note, on a positive note, that there really is a chance to experience all that you are now, and that being in group is, and the IANDS group, the IANDS conference is coming up. And I'd love to show the website real quick. Let's share the screen real quick so we can, you can explain. So let's see, it's not here. There you go. Over 700 people have joined that are going to be physically in Chicago at the end of the month to see Brooke and Peter and these other people. Dr. Raymond Moody's going to be there. Do you guys want to talk to this at all? Peter, do you, or do you want me to, or?
I just encourage everybody to attend if you can. It's not too late. It's next week, but it's not too late because the information, the science that's presented, the stories that are presented, the first person narratives, the things Brooke and I are going to talk about, trauma and integration, they're very helpful and they're very informative. But the thing that really gets me every single time is this huge bubble of energy that is over the entire place. The first time I went, I felt like I was walking into a cartoon where I was a human being on one side, and then I stepped through this barrier and I became, whoa, this divine energy is just so present. And that's what I love most about it, is being with my peers, my friends.
Yes, it's like going to Sedona and walking into one of the vortexes. You join into a vortex of love, and you can actually sense the light from the experiencers who have gone to the other side and want to bring that love and that divine light here into this reality, and they're consciously doing it. It's amazing, and the people who do amazing work in the world. Most people come back with a huge sense of purpose to serve others, just like these two beautiful people here. So, Brooke, do you want to say anything about it?
Well, I would say that for new experiencers or persons that are curious, we talked about plant medicine. I always encourage people before they engage in something to have a healthy dose of curiosity and do the preliminary work, investigate it, be in resonance with it, be around it. If you're curious about mystical experiences or NDEs in particular, there is a soul call to that. There's a reason. So go be in the community. You don't need to be an experiencer. We all have this mystical seed in our soul, and that's what's calling to you. But as our world is hurting and awakening right now, just to simply be in that love-filled bubble that we've highlighted, that is so healing. And you get to take that home with you. It becomes part of your frequency and what you emit. So I highly encourage it. And I also want to say, for years, we were strictly virtual from 2020 to like 2022. I believe we came back into presence in the physical. And so if you can only join from online, do it. We all did it for years, and the frequency is still very much there. I know with Peter and I, whenever we start engaging in person, you're going to feel the transmission. So just come and be in resonance with everyone. You will get a healthy dose of the love frequency, and go out and share that with everyone you can, please.
Yes. And that's at conference.iands.org. And as Brooke said, you can get the online live stream, both tickets, whether you go in person or online. You do get the recordings. So instead of watching Netflix for the next 6 months, you can watch these presentations, which when you experience the stories of these people and that have touched another side and have come back with so much to offer to us right now, you will be changed and for the better. So I want to, I appreciate both of you so much, and thank you for everything you do. I love you both so much. I want you to also know that Ned said Soul Fam here. So yeah, it's going to be a family reunion, and thank you both very much. So thank you, you guys. Please, if you know anyone that could benefit from this conversation, please share this, and please go to Peter's site and Brooke's site, as well as the IANDS site, to see how you can go deeper with both of them. You will be so glad you did. Thank you, guys. Love you.
Thank you. Love you.